and from the Pitt Law School. Professor, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for this opportunity, John.
You actually have, I believe, is it an immigration law center at the University of Pittsburgh? Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, so the Immigration Law Clinic at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law, it's a program that represents immigrants that are applying for asylum, that are refugees, or other immigrants that might be in the Western Pennsylvania region. We're the only program like that in all of Western PA.
Well, I very much appreciate you joining me this morning to help me understand the Supreme Court decision in the DACA program. Let me ask you, Professor, if we can go back to basics, what exactly does DACA stand for? What's it all about?
So DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And what it did is that it created a structured, coordinated program for certain young people that have arrived to the United States to ask for deferred action. And that means that the government, if the young people met the certain criteria, would not deport them and would allow them to remain in the United States for a period of time. And with staying in the United States, they would also have access to work permit and to go to school, continue their studies in college. But it didn't apply to everyone. So it had to be someone that had been brought to the United States before they were 16, that they had been enrolled in school or they had been in the military, and that they were younger than 31 years old by June 2012. So if people met those criteria, they could apply for the deferred action program, and more than 700,000 people did.
Yes, it affects a lot of people. But again, just to be clear, this is children. These are children who, through no fault of their own, because their parents brought them here, albeit illegally, but they were here, these children are being protected by a program that was instituted by President Obama. Then, if I understand correctly, in 2017, President Trump wanted to repeal this program. Is that what happened?
Yes. So in 2017, the Trump administration rescinded the DACA program. They had rescinded first the DAPA program, which was a similar program for parents of US citizen children and legal permanent resident children that was never put into effect because it was enjoined by the courts. And it never saw the light of day, let's just say that like that. But DACA had been in place for several years, and at the time that the rescission happened, the numbers of DACA applicants had been more than 700,000. And in 2017, the Trump administration decided to rescind that program. And that opened up the door for litigation in several cases, some litigation by the NAACP, by the University of California, and by private parties. And all those cases are consolidated in the case today by the Supreme Court.
So what exactly did the Supreme Court decide today? And I know the opinion was liberals on the court. It was a 5-4 decision.
It was a 5-4 decision.
So what was, tell us about the decision.
First of all, let me tell you what the case was not about. The case was not about whether DACA was legal or not, whether that was not the issue before the court. So I've already seen people say, no, that DACA is legal or DACA is illegal. No, that was not the issue before the court. The issue before the court was not whether the government can rescind DACA. Every party that agree that government can change their policies. The issue before the court was how the agency chose to do that rescission, and whether the way that the Trump administration carried out the rescission stands the test of the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, and the test of procedural due process. So that was what's before the court.
So let me sort of break this down then. What the court decided then was that the Trump administration did not follow the proper rules to
Yes.
rescind, and that they had the power to rescind, they just didn't do it in the legal and proper way. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So the court found two faults with it. First, that the initial memorandum that the Department of Homeland Security issued to justify the rescission in the first place was insufficient. And even though the government tried to use a memorandum by Secretary Nielsen that was drafted 9 months ago, the Supreme Court said, no, we can only evaluate the decision when it was made with the rationale that was presented when it was made.
Gotcha. So,
And that rationale was insufficient. And because the court goes to say that even though it recognizes that the government didn't have to evaluate all policy considerations before rescinding, that the government should have evaluated more policy considerations, including policy decisions that might have a less detrimental effect in such a large amount of people. So the government said, you could have divided the policy and you could have under your own rationale, you could have rescinded the ability of DACA recipients to work without necessarily rescinding the ability to remain in the United States. And in that balance of, in that balance of policy considerations, the court feels that the government failed to address that there are legitimate interests that had been generated, and that those people that had been
does this mean now that the Trump administration can still go ahead and rescind the DACA program, but they just have to do it in a different way? And is there time for them to do that before the presidential election?
Yes. So this decision to rescind was deemed to be arbitrary and capricious because of the way it was done. But the court has remanded the case. So the case now goes back to the district courts, and the government has to choose what it's going to do once that case is remanded. Whether they're going to continue to sort of push forward with this decision, or they're going to make changes to the way that they rescinded the policy and go forward with rescinding the policy in a way that it complies with the Administrative Procedures Act. But all this is going to take time.
Can it be completed before this election?
I would think it would be unlikely that it could be completed before the election, just because there's several cases. There's a remand. There are different judges that have inherence in those different cases, but also the government has to make a policy decision, right? So they have to ponder, where do they want to go with this? And this is as much as a political decision as anything else.
Well, yeah, and that kind of leads to my last question, Professor, which may be a political decision. Knowing that one candidate, Joe Biden, supports DACA and keeping it in place, it actually came out of the Obama-Biden administration, and knowing that President Trump has a different view on this, does it really come down to who's elected president on November 3rd?
Well, I don't want to. I don't think we need to think of it like that, although it would likely be. But and if I were to speak to President Trump, he in the past had expressed some support for Dreamers during the campaign in 2016. So he has an opportunity now, right, to say, well, this is the decision of the Supreme Court, and we are going to accept it. And then it doesn't become necessarily right? That political issue in the November election. But definitely, it it seems that it will be, because I don't see that reaction from the tweet earlier today. I don't think that's the way it's going.
No, I think he tweeted earlier today that the court seems to be against him. I think he
Right.
was taking it rather personally. But you're quite right. He did offer in the past to try to cut a deal with the Democrats and come up with legislation to protect the Dreamers, but that hasn't, nothing's happened yet at that point. So,
Right. And from my perspective, which is how we protect this community, that would be the best way. That there would be an agreement, and a cultural and political agreement in this sense.
well, Professor Velez Martinez, thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate your insight in all of this. Thank you again.
Thank you, John.
We are with Monique Bernal Herrera from Pittsburgh, who is one of the DACA dreamers. Monique, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get to Pittsburgh and America? Where were you born?
I was born in Acapulco, Mexico. I was brought to the US when I was 4 years old by my parents. We came here because there was, a lot of gang violence and down where we lived. So my parents just wanted like a better life for me. So I went to, I went to elementary school, middle school, high school. Currently, I'm 31 years old. I have two beautiful kids, my husband, and yeah, I'm excited that this is, DACA passed. It's a blessing. I'm excited. I'm speechless right now because I can't believe it myself.
I want to ask you more about that in just a second, but obviously you went to school, grade school,
Yes.
middle school, high school, right here in Pittsburgh?
Yes, I did.
So you consider yourself an American,
Yes, I do.
and yet you're not, because your parents came here illegally. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so when President Obama instituted the DACA program, what did that mean to you?
It meant a lot. It meant, I have an opportunity to work, to continue studying, to have a driver's license, to have an actual ID that I can, I can carry, and not,
And Trump rescinded the DACA program in 2017, I believe. What was your reaction?
I was devastated because we worked really hard for this. Um, I was really like upset that day. I told my husband, like, I don't, I'm scared, but he always like gave me like, motivation. It's going to be okay. We're going to continue fighting, whatever it takes. We'll just fight for, what's right. You've been here your whole life, and, there's no reason why you should go back home.
And you're working here in Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
When the decision came down today, this morning, how did you find out about it?
My mom called me this morning. I was actually on my way to a doctor's appointment for my kids, and she was just like, she was excited. I knew there was something going on with her just by the tone of her voice. And I was like, what's going on? She said, just hold on. She's like, hold on tight. I was like, why? What's going on? She said, I have amazing news. I was like, what's going on? Just tell me, because I'm driving. She said, DACA's staying. DACA's staying here. Like, you guys won. You guys did it. I was like, what? So I literally had to pull over because I was just like, I had chicken skin. I was like so happy. like I even started crying and my kids were like, "Mommy, why are you crying?" I was like, "I'm just happy." I was like, "Mommy's staying, mommy's staying." So my 4-year-old, we kind of like, you know, talked about it a little bit with her, um, just in case anything happened that, DACA you know, wasn't going to go through. Um, we spoke to her and told her if, anything happened, mommy was going to go back home, but, she would be able to come with me sometime.
Yes, well, your kids are born in the USA, I assume.
Yes,
So they're
yes,
American citizens, but
yes.
but you are not, and neither are your parents.
No,
So you are all subject to being deported, although the DACA protection protects you, but it doesn't really protect your parents, does it?
no, no.
So is it possible for them to be then arrested and deported?
Yes, there is, a big risk right now for them too.
But in at least at this time, you are safe, and of course your kids are by virtue of being Americans. What do you
Yes.
hope happens next? What needs to happen next?
Oh man. I wish, there could be a path to citizenship. Like we've been here so long, we've pledged allegiance to the flag. We pay taxes. We do what every American does. And I believe there should be a path to citizenship for this. And I mean, it's only for 2 years, and then you have to renew it every 2 years. So we're spending so much money to renew DACA, and I feel like there should be, a path to citizenship.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time, Monique, to talk to us and explain what's going on here. Um, Obviously, you've got to feel overjoyed at the
Yes,
U.S. Supreme Court's decision.
I am so excited, so excited. I had to call my husband and tell him like, this is what happened, this is what's going on. He literally said he jumped out of the bed and he was so excited.
Well, again, good luck to you. I know there's more to come because of we don't yet have a pathway to citizenship for you and the
Right.
other dreamers. Oh, I should ask this question before I let you go, and that is, do you know, are there a lot of dreamers in the Pittsburgh area?
Yes, there are a lot of dreamers. I'm not too sure the exact numbers, but I do know a couple, dreamers like myself.
And you're in touch with them, or do you communicate with each other?
I mean, yeah, we do communicate.
Yeah, good. Well, again, thank you so much, Monique, for taking time with me today. I really appreciate the chance
So
to
thank
talk
you
to
for
you.
having me.
We are with Monica Ruiz, who is the Executive Director of CASA San Jose. Monica, thank you so much for being with me. Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me.
So what exactly is CASA San Jose?
We're a nonprofit organization. We're located here in Pittsburgh, and we service not only the city of Pittsburgh, but Allegheny County and surrounding counties. And we work so that recently arrived immigrants can reach self-sufficiency and learn how to navigate the city and surrounding counties.
Are you focused primarily on Spanish-speaking immigrants?
Correct, yes.
Can you give me your thoughts on this decision this morning by the U.S. Supreme Court with respect to DACA?
It is wonderful. It is something that is well deserved. These dreamers have been fighting for this since 2017 when it was rescinded. We were in front of the White House when we received the news that it was rescinded. And so they've been fighting tirelessly to make this happen, and they won. And we're very, very proud of them.
What's your understanding of what this decision means?
So I haven't read the entire thing, but from what my understanding is that the folks that of not being deported.
So the bottom line is that the Obama administration's procedures, the DACA protections that allow dreamers to stay in this country, will continue in place?
Yes.
So what exactly is a dreamer?
A dreamer is somebody who was brought here under the age of 16, who has studied here, lived here, worked here, has families now, and have been living their whole lives here. You know, they have attended our schools, they have pledged allegiance to our American flag, and they are more American than some of us that were actually born here.
And yet there was an effort to deport them because their parents came here illegally?
Correct, correct. You know, the dreamers have been here working really hard, you know, and this temporary protection that they received under the Obama administration is not enough, right? Because it doesn't offer them a pathway to citizenship. And so to remove those minor things in place, protections, was just really disheartening.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And I think a lot of people in the Pittsburgh area may say, well, is this really affecting folks in this area? What can you tell us about the dreamers?
Yes, it is. It is. It's not only just across the country, but across the state of Pennsylvania and even here locally. We've worked very closely. Like I said, we had 2 buses full of dreamers and their families and allies that took the bus to DC on the day that it was rescinded. And those people never stopped fighting. They never stopped. They met with their elected officials. They shared their stories. They were really out there because they are defending their dreams.
Monica, can you give us some estimate? How many dreamers are there in Pennsylvania or southwestern Pennsylvania?
I believe there's 6,000 in Pennsylvania. I probably have that information somewhere. But
well, we can get the exact figure from you later, but you're saying there's roughly 6,000 dreamers in Pennsylvania alone?
In the state of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm.
How about in this region?
In this region, we probably work with about 100 of them that we know of in different capacities.
And so this particular ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court essentially allows them to stay in place and not worry about deportation?
Correct. They can continue to apply every 2 years. They will keep their work permits, you know, social security cards, driver's licenses. They'll have all of those things. But again, you know, this is just this was a huge blow to this population, and the fact that we won just lets us know that, like, there's many other things that still need to happen. Dreamers need a pathway to citizenship. And not only that, the 11 million undocumented people in this country also need a pathway to citizenship, and they need access to things like driver's licenses. Even though, like, the dreamers might have their work permits and things like that, but a lot of them, there's no tuition equity. They're paying international student rates. And so we need to make sure that they're receiving all the things that they're really working hard and deserving for.
And I guess the other question is, what about their parents? Because their parents did come here illegally. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the same DACA protection.
They don't have that protection. Right, right. And so, you know, there needs to be something done for the parents, right? So what would happen to these dreamers if their parents were no longer here, right? These dreamers didn't get to go to college and become really great, wonderful citizens, you know, here by themselves. Like, they had really great parents that helped them along the way. You know, their parents are also law-abiding people, and they're working really hard, and they're doing everything they need to do to raise really great kids, which is what we're seeing with these dreamers.
And then finally, as you know, President Trump did say at one time that he wants to have legislation that deal with the dreamers, and that he would, quote, work with the Democrats in a bipartisan way. Do you think this is going to happen?
It's been 4 years, and he's done nothing but try to destroy what these dreamers have been doing in building this country. And if he was really serious about that, then he would have come up with something. He's had 4 years.
Well, Monica Ruiz, it's a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just because the weekend starts doesn't mean our commitment to excellence stops. Wake up to KDKA TV News Saturday and Sunday morning for overnight and breaking news.